So, und damit herzlich willkommen zurück hier auf der Bühne 1, wenn wir über Fachkräftemangel natürlich auch sprechen wollen, aber mit einem internationalen Bezug über das Thema der internationalen Fachkräfte. Und daher werden wir jetzt das Panel auch auf Englisch führen, unter der Frage, we do switch now into English with the leading question of how can we effectively integrate the incoming international professionals, and I hand over to my moderator's colleague, Heresch.
Hallo. Ja, wir kommen alle gleich zusammen. Hello and welcome to our next program item. My name is Heresch and I will be moderating. We are dedicating the upcoming 40 minutes to the very important question of how can we effectively integrate incoming international professionals, and therefore I will welcome my very dear guests here on stage. We have, I start ladies first, Rosh Khodabakhsh. I'm very happy that you're here. You are a filmmaker, a film production specialist, let's say. And we have here on my right-hand side Daniel Harnoss from Imagine Foundation. I'm very happy that you're here. And we have a third speaker who is not here physically, but we have her via video live stream. Hello, Tanja. I'm very happy to welcome you, because Tanja, can you already see her? I don't think so. No? Tanja is right now in Cyprus. So Tanja Loktionova, she's our third speaker here today. Yeah, I would say let's directly start into our topic. Our main question will be answered during this upcoming 40 minutes, but let's get each other a little bit better to know. So, Rosh, I would really love to know, I already told something about your background, but there's also an organization involved, NewMotion. Can you explain us a little bit more about that?
Thank you for having me here. And yes, NewMotion. NewMotion is an initiative which is still in the building. We haven't started yet. We are still in the funding process. My partner and I, who is doing this initiative together with me, Johann Daniel, who is a producer at X-Filmer, he came to me and he knew, because I was always, you know, we have the same topics, diversity and behind the camera, and because many things are happening for in front of the camera, which is great, still not enough, but you know, there is some movement, which is, let's stay positive, which is good, but behind the camera is like really not good. So there is basically not really, there is no, it's not like it mirrors our society. And then we thought, okay, what can we do? And at the same time, we have a issue of, what's Fachkräftemangel in English?
Labor shortage?
Labor shortage in the film and TV industry, I guess in many industries, but also in our industry. And we thought, okay, that's great, so let's put this together and let's have the diversity shortage and the labor shortage, put them together and create this initiative. And then we thought, okay, how do we get all the people to be interested in our business? Because, you know, the film and TV industry is always like in a bubble, you know. You need to know someone, or you need to be very aware that you can have a job in the industry, and it's not like, you know, not accessible. We always have this image of not being easily accessible, and we would like to change that, basically. We would like to basically take away this bubble and, you know, make it open. And then we was inspired by, which is a very common thing in the US and in UK, is like a shadowing program, which is, we don't have it in Germany. We really looked it up, and there is no kind of, no one really knows what shadowing is.
What is shadowing? Maybe
Shadowing
it would be important to explain.
You basically, if you're interested in a field, you are allowed to spend 3 days, it's not a long term, let's say 2 to 3 days with someone in that field, and you're just standing next to that person and you just observe what they are doing, so you get a feeling of what job this is they are doing. So basically
you're
allowed
kind
to
of
go.
A shadow.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
It always sounds a little bit negative, this word, shadow, but in this case, yes. So we decided to imply that, can you say imply? Sorry for my English. To bring that to Germany and put that in our industry and say, okay, people who don't know what it is, because you can explain someone what's a gripper, what's a set manager. You can explain it, but if you're not standing on a film set or TV set, you will never understand what it is, because it's basically very abstract. So yeah, and then we also wanted to bring down the, what's the Hürden? The
barriers, borders?
Yeah, the barriers to make the access easier. And you know, you don't need to go to the university, or you don't need to have a Abitur to, you know, come to the film industry. And we really need these people. So that's basically the initiative. It's quite more complex, of course. And then, of course, it's for all over Germany, and we are planning an advertisement thing all over it. So we basically get the people we really want. And it's not only for people with diversity, the focus is on it, but it's, of course, for everybody. Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much for this short introduction. Now I'm very excited to know more about the Imagine Foundation. Daniel, can you explain us what is it all about?
Yeah, sure, very happy to. Imagine is in Germany an NGO, a gemeinnütziger Verein, even though we're called Foundation. And our mission is to foster legal and skilled migration to Europe. Yeah? And we started 4 years ago in a small circle of friends, have a couple of friends also from the Egyptian tech scene here in Berlin, and we kicked it off. You know, ever since we're helping folks from Egypt, Pakistan, Afghanistan, Syria, nowadays also Nigeria and other places, to basically understand what does the German and European job market look like, what are their strengths and maybe also weaknesses, and we inspire them that many of them are actually already ready to be living and working here very happily. We give that advice in a free bootcamp that we run now for all of these years.
But you're running the bootcamp over there, right? Or are you doing this work here in Germany?
Yeah, that's the cool thing. Actually, since we started before COVID, back then it was a bit unusual, but in fact, it has always been digital and remote. Yeah. So basically, but how did it all start? It started because a good friend of mine basically was very active in supporting Syrian refugees when they came over first 2015 and 16. And I also saw firsthand the struggles of working really with a very, let's say, varied and heterogeneous target group, you know, young and old and highly educated and people just getting into education. And so I thought, hey, wouldn't it be nice if we could have a program that basically works with folks while they're still in their countries and then basically prepares them for Europe. And then once they're ready, they can come over legally and much more safely as well.
Wow, that sounds fantastic. Super. So I'm also very excited to know more about Tanja. Maybe it's a good idea that we can all see her, because I already have her here on my screen.
She's on the other side.
Ah, yeah. Okay.
I hope that at least okay. You can hear me.
Yeah, super. I'm happy to have you here, Tanja. How are you? You are in Cyprus, right?
Yeah, I'm in Cyprus. I've been living here since February. Before the full-scale Russian invasion to Ukraine, I used to live in Kiev, and we had to relocate in February with all of my family. And I'm here not just as a woman who has relocated with all of her family and is now waiting for another baby. Here in Cyprus, I'm the founder of Values Value. It's a recruitment team founded in 2017 in Ukraine, and led by 6 women partners. We are an expert in hiring game development specialists for game development studios and businesses, now all over the EU and globally. Before the full-scale invasion, we were 70% focused on the Eastern European market. However, we have had clients from Germany and tight connections with the German games industry, and that is why I can speak here not only on the behalf of the whole industry, but with some insights about Germany. And besides that, I am the co-founder of In-Game Job. This is a global job portal where we try to accumulate all the jobs in the games development industry all over the English-speaking world. And together with a couple of partners, we had an initiative of supporting Ukrainians suffering from war. And we united, I guess, more than 400 companies from all over the world where they could help Ukrainian game developers as businesses, as individuals, as those who are looking for relocate and who are looking for a new job. And I'm proud to say that out of around 300 companies allocated in Germany and making games, more than 100 has joined this initiative, and it was supported even by supported by the government, at least in the way of newsletter. And that is why I want to thank you for having me here, and the German games industry and all the German people for being very helpful to Ukraine in these very hard times.
Well, we are also very happy that you're here and to share your knowledge. Also, especially the connection or the specialist that you are in hiring in the gaming industry. And what's your perspective internationally on the German gaming talent market? Is it easy to integrate people from abroad?
Well, we need to speak about the German labor market in the games industry, depending on the pre-pandemic times, the post-pandemic times, and now since we're in a great crisis due to war. So before the pandemic, most of the companies hired highly skilled migrants who were open to relocate. Most of, I think the majority, 99%, didn't hire someone who would work remote. Mostly wanted were those who were the residents of the neighboring Eastern European countries, or those, for example, those Ukrainians who have already had some experience in working in an international environment, and Germany would rarely, or more rarely, become the first country as a destination for someone who is highly skilled and willing to relocate. So you had, for example, to work for at least half a year in a Polish company, prove that you are, how to say, that you're able to integrate, and then you would be more than welcome into a German company. If we speak about the market that I used to represent, the Ukrainian market or the Russian-speaking and the Russian-speaking neighboring countries, we were usually hired as either freelancers or as a part of outsourcing teams based in somewhere in Ukraine, for example. But if we spoke about developers and artists, not the product owners, the producers, those who decide on how the game is going to be. But if you speak about the hands, yes, they were more welcome. During the pandemic times, a lot of things changed because the local or the already assimilated specialists who were all gone remote, they started to look for opportunities in the US or Canada, where the salaries are much higher, where they can be doubled, and everyone had to work remote. So a lot of local great minds changed their jobs. And there was a real shortage of workforce in Germany. And that is why, first, the German companies started to hire and relocate more, not waiting for this probation period in the neighboring countries, or they started to hire remote. They had to adjust to the new conditions and become more open to the specialists from the Middle East and Asia, not only the European countries. Some of the companies tried to look at the opportunities of setting up an office in another region, not only in Germany. And now, with this new crisis, the German companies gained access first to the Ukrainian refugees, then to the citizens of Russia and Belarus who were open to relocate and leave their regime. And if we speak about the Ukrainians, it was the first time, and now it is the first time, when the German companies are open to middle and junior and even entry roles with the international specialists. Before that, it was only the leading senior roles. Some companies choose not to hire the owners of the Russian and Belarusian passports, even if they are already in the country. Others are more open to it. Some hire whole teams, whole development teams, who had to escape their local situation. And at the same time, when we see this upcoming recession and layoffs, even in the industry that is not growing as much as it used to in 2021, but is growing more than but it's growing comparing to the pre-pandemic times. So we feel the recession, and there are layoffs, and there are currency instability, for example, in Turkey, and a huge amount of Turkish game developers are super open to relocation to Germany. And this is the scene that we have now, together with the fact that if it is physical relocate, it is usually Berlin or Munich. And if we speak about assimilating in Berlin, finding a flat there, finding an apartment, especially if you are a refugee from Ukraine who has relocated with a small child, you're a woman because most of the male are not allowed to leave the country. It is a huge, huge challenge. Even if you get a job, this doesn't mean that you are in the right position, in the right environment to stay in Germany. Even if we have this 2 year of residence permit, comparing to other countries, Some countries like Slovakia, they don't give residence permit. They give this temporary asylum. And in Germany, we have quite great support from the government. But anyway, for some of the relocants, of the expats, the minuses of assimilation, they prevail the pluses that Germany has comparing to other European countries.
All right, so we still have a lot of challenges to solve. Rosh, how is the situation in the film industry? Is it very international here in Germany? Are there a lot of international people working within the German film industry?
You mean who are based in Germany but are not Germans? When there are many international productions, of course, we know, come to Berlin and shoot in Babelsberg. We just finished here Tributes of Panem Part 4. And Matrix was shot here, so the Wachowski is shoot here.
I was thinking more about like
Crew?
the crew members who are not originally from German, and how are the barriers right now at the moment for them?
No, because I mean, if they are coming for the project, of course they're bringing sometimes people with them, some departments, others are from the German, but as I said before, it's like if you're talking about, it's not like that we are bringing in people from other countries to shoot on German movies. That's not something you usually do. Sometimes when because of the shortage, we go to the next countries like Czech Republic because they have, or Germany, or Austria, or maybe Switzerland, but you know, that's basically the surrounding. You take crew for a German shoot, but also it depends what kind of project it is, because you have to speak English or German. That's basically required. And if you don't speak none of these languages, it's hard to work in the film and TV industry in Germany, which I think is in every country like that. You have to speak the language of the origin, or at least English. So it's not like we bring in people from Asia or Near East to work on the film and then send them back. What happens is in the VFX and animation parts, of course, that happens. You know, when you have an animation or you have a VFX shot, then they send, because it's all digitally and it's all, you know, data and on a computer. That then happens again with other countries, for sure. That because it's cheaper, it's and they are super professional, and they have even more opportunities, because in animation and VFX we are still not that far as other countries are. So it depends on which department you're in. But that's basically, I think, the only two departments where this happens. But that happens also in the US, you know, when they do animation and VFX, part of it goes to China or India or East Europe. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And Johann, what would you say? Where are the biggest challenges in integrating international talent right now from your perspective?
Yeah, wow, big question. I mean, first of all, I can only agree with my other colleagues here on the panel that language is key. And I think what we also sort of heard is that there are companies here who are digitally native from day one. They all speak English, and basically hiring globally is second nature for them. Like for them, even this type of discussion is a bit like, okay, this is yesterday's news. Like, what are you talking about, right? I mean, we're just open to anybody who applies, and we take the best person, right? But then there's also the other ones, and I wouldn't say just all of the Mittelstand is like that, but you know, the more established the company, the more traditional, the more it mostly works in German, the bigger also, and maybe this is an interesting aspect, the bigger are also sort of the internal cultural barriers to work with global talent that maybe on their first days on the job will not speak German. Yeah? And so maybe for most of us this sounds like an easy problem to solve. All right, let's just have a couple of teams that just operate in English. very often that actually means it's a huge culture change for the companies. Yeah? And so basically from the perspective of talents, it is very hard to be among the very first to enter such a company and a culture. And hence what we recommend, and sometimes, you know, we're not a recruiter, but sometimes we advise companies on how to work with global talent. We would advise them that first they need somebody in middle management who's dedicated to this, willing to basically set up this English-speaking team. And then second, not just hire one or two people, you know, just to try and test the waters, but go in a little bit more and hire a small team. I mean, you also mentioned entire teams getting hired, but basically have a minimum scale, so to speak, for this new team to operate well.
Okay, so here, like, the way is to establish international English-speaking parts, but are the companies also supporting in learning German, or?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I would say this is nearly the standard, that this also happens. Obviously, that also requires people's willingness to actually learn German. And I have to say, you know, since you asked, okay, what are the challenges? I see actually Berlin being obviously very open to global talent. And I would argue it's housing is an issue, and finding school for children is a huge issue. But maybe entering Germany through Berlin is relatively easy. However, I see also lots of people leave just after a couple of years, right? And so I would say those who never really learned the language are also much more at risk of at some point leaving. And they tell me sad stories that they say, hey, Johann, happy to be part of Imagine, but otherwise I don't really have any German friends, and I live here a little bit in a bubble.
And what do you think? What are the reasons why it's so hard also to immigrate in a cultural way to find, let's say, German like-minded friends?
I mean, first of all, you asked about the challenges, and so I wanted to give some feeling for the challenges. But overall, I would love to encourage everybody that actually, I think. Overall, the situation is much better than we often think. Let me give one example. I think Germany, and we looked at this also at the other company I'm at, BCG, that the German visa system, if you have university education, is as open as any in the world. Yeah? So from a visa perspective, even though lots of people complain and it could still be much better, it actually has improved quite a bit. Yeah? And so the overall tone I would love to set is that you know, one of empowerment, and I know hundreds of people globally that came to Berlin and are very happy here and are finding friends.
Okay, super. I'm very glad to hear that. Tanja, what would you say? What's your impression so far concerning? You also mentioned a very important topic, that you are working with a female team, basically. Why is that, and how diverse do you in generally perceive the gaming sector?
Well, I must say that the games industry sector has put a question of diversity not that long ago. If we speak about the IT and digital as a whole, the discussion started much earlier. But it doesn't make the discussion less meaningful at the moment. And for example, since 2017, we've been running a salary survey, where we analyze the salaries of female and of those who didn't state their gender or preferred not to answer, or who chose another gender. And from year to year, we see that the percentage of female grows. We started when it was something like 77% of male to 23 female. And this year we had something like 65 to 35. And I meet not that much bias and prejudice as it used to be like 5 years ago. when a technology officer could refuse to continue his employment, his employment at the company because the new project manager is a female, or when there were prejudices when hiring a female top manager, that she would get pregnant and have a long maternity leave and so on and so forth. So let's take a look at the male candidates. So at this point, it is almost impossible, or maybe it is almost impossible with us because we have this value of diversity. And I don't think that in the modern world it is such an issue. But if we speak in terms of hiring, but if we dive deeper, and we'll take a look at the salaries, and the salaries are traditionally much lower for female than for male. And it is also connected with the situation that the candidate names the expected salary. And women tend to ask less money. They tend to ask less raises. They tend to skip negotiations about upgrade in a position or a role, and so on and so forth. And for example, in the US, there is a big movement of making the salaries clear, of showing the difference and paying the difference. In the European Union, we don't see big examples like that, even in the hugest companies. But at least there is the topic of harassment, there is the topic of diversity, and so on and so forth. I must say that the biggest, how to say it, those who are discriminated, the biggest discrimination in the games industry, the more eastern you go, yeah, it is the age, it is not the gender. If you are a specialist, 50 plus something, or even 40 plus something, then you can get less job opportunities, twice less, 3 times less. Though in my opinion, with every year of experience, you get more and more valuable for the potential company. But it can be also connected to the fact that the games industry is usually a very young one. There are many startups which can be founded by 20-something founders who invite as first employees their 20-something friends and ex-colleagues. And when they have an application from a 45-year-old producer who is young and fresh concerning the ideas and energy, they could choose someone else. And this is a very big issue in this young industry. And I wonder if this happens in other creative industries as well.
What do you say? Is this also the case in the film industry, Rosh?
Well, what I can say is, of course, definitely with the payment differences between men and women in Germany, it's a huge problem.
And
it's
even
actually
the gender pay gap in the film and the creative industry is 10% higher than the normal gender pay gap, let's say.
It's really crazy that, and we are in the 21st century in Germany. It's like really shameful.
Yeah, it's 30%.
Yeah, super shameful. And also with the age, the film industry, I wouldn't agree. The problem in the film industry depends on which part you work. If you work on set, it's a very hard, challenging work, you know, because if you're on set, it's like at least 12 hours a day. It goes for weeks, for months. It's the basically working hours, and so, you know, you need to have this energy. And of course, when you're younger, the energy is more. So I don't know how if you are 50 something, if you still want to, there is, but and I don't think that there is a problem. I just think that there is maybe basically the surrounding who could support also people in an older age on set is not given. So that's more the issue. But that's also for the young people. And that's anyway one issue in the film industry is the expectations of how you work and the working hours. That's something, you know, we get a lot of critique, as I just say we, because we as the production companies and the producers, which I understand, but it's also something, you know, we need to work on, that's for sure. And also because, you know, many people are tired and then you forget things, and it's like, I think in this case France is much better in the working hours and stuff, and then of course you can integrate more people with the age and stuff. But other than that, it's not a problem. More the payment thing is like, I don't want to even, it's really sad.
A big challenge.
Yeah, it's really sad.
We are already in our last 5 minutes, so I would like to ask you for a really short highlight round of your personal future best case scenario concerning the integration of international talents into the industry. May I ask you to start, Johann?
Wow, okay, happy to. Yeah, so my big dream is that we go beyond the discourse on Fachkräftemangel and labor shortage, which is basically the first motivation why many of us, including me, we care about this topic, right? I mean, there are phenomenal jobs, many jobs that cannot be filled right now. We actually even looked at the numbers together with the UN. Turns out it's apparently nearly 100 billion every year just for Germany, like 100 Milliarden. And of course, you know, there's an economic argument for more migration. But actually this doesn't move me personally when we do our volunteering work, I'd imagine. Like what gets all of us in the team and the many volunteers going every day is, you know, that it's a way to make the world a better place. And I hope it doesn't sound too cliche, so let me explain. You know, so there's, if you take two people, yeah, randomly on planet Earth, yeah, out of the nearly 8 billion that we are, and just ask yourself, okay, what explains any difference that you might see in economic terms between those two people? Yeah, then you can look at family and gender, of course, and upbringing and education and many other factors which all matter, right? But 2/3 of all of those differences come down to one question, and that is, where have you been born? Yeah? And so somehow I think we all know that, but in our daily lives we tend to forget about it. And so, you know, I would just like to invite all of us to remember this, that helping people get out of places where there's less opportunity and help them get to other places where there's more opportunity is just a beautiful thing for everybody involved.
Wow, that sounds amazing. Tanja, we just have 2 minutes left, but I would really love to hear very shortly your personal future best case scenario.
I hope that the companies are going to have this cross-cultural adaptation working in two ways. Not just to assimilate the international talent coming to work with them, but also to assimilate the local employees. Besides that, I hope for a better support for the relocated specialists, not only for super highly skilled migrants,
All right.
level managers as well.
Yeah. Now, may I also ask you for your personal future best case scenario?
Short. Maybe that we don't need to talk about it anymore. Maybe it's just like that, you know, it's not a topic anymore, that we have other issues to talk about.
That
would be
amazing.
nice.
Yeah, I agree. So thank you so much for your input, for this very constructive and inspiring, empowering discussion. Thank you all for being here. It was a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.